All right. Hello, everyone, and thank you all for joining us during the Lytham Partners Fall 2023 Investor Conference. My name is Robert Blum, Managing Partner of Lytham Partners. Up next here, we have a panel presentation with executives from different aspects of the battery materials market that I expect will be able to provide added insights into this rapidly evolving world and this industry here. We have with us here from Nouveau Monde Graphite, their CEO, Eric Desaulniers, from Arianne Phosphate, their president, Brian Ostroff, from Electra Battery Materials, their CEO, Trent Mell, and from Volt Lithium, their CEO, Alex Wylie. We've titled the panel Energy Revolution, Unveiling Battery Market Insights. Just as a quick bit of background before we dive in here, according to a recent Bloomberg report, energy storage installations around the world are projected to reach a cumulative 411 gigawatts by the end of 2030. It's about 15 times the storage that was online at the end of 2021. I know we could sort of sit here and debate the size, and perhaps we will a little bit. But for the sake of this discussion, let's assume that the number is going to be growing rather rapidly here. The purpose of this discussion is to address how we are going to handle this increase in demand. So if we could first start off with each of you introducing yourselves, providing a bit of background on your company and of course yourself, that would be great. And Eric, why don't you begin?
Yeah, it's great. Thanks, Robert. Thanks for having me today. So I'm Eric Desaulniers, founder, CEO of Nouveau Monde Graphite. Started the company 12 years ago now. So what we're doing at NMG, we're developing the largest and most advanced natural graphite operations in North America. To do that, we have two large mining assets, the Matawinie mine and also the Whatnan mining project. And obviously in batteries, you need to do the product for the customer. So we're doing also the transformation of our concentrate into battery anode material in Bécancour, here all in Quebec. We have now 120 employees, invested north of 200 million US in the project in the last 12 years. So very advanced. Construction started on the phase 2, and pending finalizing project financing will be in production in the next few years. So quite happy to be there today with you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Eric. Brian?
Yeah, thank you, Robert. I'm Brian Ostroff. I'm the president of Arianne Phosphate. Arianne owns the Lac à Paul deposit in Quebec, Canada. Our deposit today is the world's single largest greenfield phosphate deposit. As an independent, we are capable of making a very pure phosphate concentrate. We'll get into that in a little while, but very pertinent as we talk about batteries. The project is fully permitted, shovel ready. I guess similar to Eric, Arianne's been at it for about 12 years as well. Advancing the project, we've put in about $100 million. And again, I guess really what's key here with regards to this particular panel is over the last couple of years as phosphate as a critical mineral has started to be understood, well beyond that as an agricultural commodity. The nature of Arianne's deposit is extremely well suited for this other application.
Fantastic, Brian. Thank you for that. Trent, why don't you please go ahead?
Thanks, Robert. Trent Mell, founder, CEO of Electra Battery Materials. Our main asset is the construction, which is ongoing, of a refinery near Toronto. So first iteration is going to be the commissioning of North America's first battery-grade cobalt refinery. In tandem with that, we are currently running a demonstration plant on black mass, so we're refining material that's been previously shredded from battery scrap and secondary materials. Beyond that, plans for nickel with partners. We've also got our eyes on Bécancour for a future expansion. And we've got a beautiful mineral project as well in the state of Idaho, copper and cobalt. Our focus really just limited treasury is really on the refinery, but a great mining deposit there as well.
Perfect. And then finally, Alex.
Thanks, Trent. Alex Wylie. I'm the founder and CEO of Volt Lithium Corp. What we've done at Volt is we've developed a technology to extract low concentration lithium from oil field brines. We also have an asset up in Northwest Alberta that we're about to go under PEA from. We've run a pilot in the spring of this year, demonstrating that we have been able to scale our technology. We scaled it about 1,000 times from the bench to our pilot in the spring of this year. And we're really focused on working with oil field producers across North America to extract lithium from oil field brines. The reason being, the infrastructure is in place and we can get at it sooner.
Perfect. Sounds good. So, let's sort of start off. And Eric, I'll start with you here. Circling back on what I mentioned at the beginning as it relates to, excuse me, the increase in demand for battery storage around the world. What are you seeing as sort of the key drivers to this growth?
Yeah, I think the main driver is the fact and this idea that we should not burn fossil fuel anymore. So because it's not good for the planet. So it's a big implication for both the power generation of the grid, and we need to do more with our grid. So battery storage is very important, but also the transportation, the car transportation. We cannot use fossil fuel anymore in the future. We need to use electric cars. So those two things put together really are very important for us. So should it be one or the other generating more market for us? At this point, we don't really care. I don't really care. So it's the amount of battery that needs to be produced in a year, and how much the customer we're targeting are willing to do of those batteries that matter a lot for a producer of the materials for it. So for us, both markets are fantastic, especially in North America, where the supply chain is very limited. It's a great opportunity to develop a resilient supply chain. I'm sure we'll talk about that. And this is why we have all the opportunity in front of us as the four supplier we have on the panel here.
Trent, maybe thank you for that, Eric. And Trent, adding anything you're sort of seeing from your side of the equation differing from Eric there?
No, look, complimentary. I was on the board for a couple of years of Toronto's electrical utility. And so when we look at the population growth and the need to add electrical capacity, I mean, to Eric's point, we can't be relying on coal or on natural gas. And so that increase of demand, then you got to think of the peak power. This is where natural gas was great, right? Up and down, up and down. Batteries will likely come in and replace that. It's instant power, it's accessible, and it's clean. And then you add, and that's even before electrification. Well, of course, we're going to get into that. But before we started looking at what electric vehicles are going to do to our city, we had all these other compounding issues that we had to address first. And then of course, beyond that, as a miner, a lot of miners around this table, remote projects, right? We use diesel generator sets typically to power these mines, and that's again in the longer term vision not sustainable. And we're seeing a lot more battery applications being developed there as well.
Brian, anything on your side there?
No, look, I would concur with everything that's been said. There's no doubt, and you touched on it earlier, we're going to see pretty rapid growth in terms of batteries and demand for the materials. And look, I think the gentleman before bring up a very interesting point. But different batteries, different technologies are well suited for different uses. Certainly as we look at this, in the market that we are, which is the LFP battery, we do bring up an important note, which is they're great for cars, but also for energy storage. So as more and more people are looking to come off the grid or supplement the power that they require by using, say, solar panels on their roof, it's great to capture that energy, but you have to store it. And that's going to be an enormous market beyond. Look, I think when people think batteries, generally, they think automotive, and they really should be thinking about the whole battery and energy ecosystem.
Yeah, perfect. Let's sort of transition topics here, and Trent, maybe if you could start off here. Let's sort of help people understand the entire battery supply chain, right? Walk us through the various components from miners through to recyclers. Sure.
Yeah, I'll keep it very succinct here, but essentially, we're all looking for minerals. So once you've got a mineral deposit that's been defined and built, you're going through the first stage, which of course is extraction, mining and mineral processing. The second phase for a battery is then to take that mineral and convert it into a usable form. So this is where Electra sits. making a battery grade cobalt instead of a cobalt alloy that would go into jet engines, for instance. And then the next stage, another chemical stage, is your precursor and your cathode active material processes. That we're starting to see some vertical integration there, but make your precursor in the case of the NCM cathode where we are focused, and then your CAM, and then from that step or two steps depending, you then end up at the battery plants, which is where it gets a little more high profile. These are the $3, $5, $7 billion investments to take the cells and put them into battery packs, and then they get handed off to an electric vehicle manufacturer. And then I guess from that, the recycling, of course, just to close the loop, it's a big market. Maybe not as big as people think today. It's getting big, perhaps. There's a lot of capacity coming on stream, and we're all getting ready for kind of that 2025 to 2030 ramp up. We think of our old laptops and cell phones today, but 2025, it's not going to be end of life cars. It's going to be battery scrap. There's a lot of scrap that gets generated. And so bringing that back in the supply chain would be the way we complete the circle and lower the dependence on primary feeds, which frankly are not going to be sufficient for demand projections.
Perfect. Anything other panelists want to add on to that there?
Yeah, maybe, I mean, what amazed me in the battery plant is the amount of different working streams that need to happen at the same time to make the battery plant functioning, to not be like Robert Friedland was saying, like a warehouse with equipments in it without materials. So there's the cathode material that the three other panelists are working mainly on the cathode side. There's the separator, the electrolyte that needs to happen also in North America, and we are on the anode side, the other side, the active material on the other side. So in our business, we need to know what needs to be made to be competitive. So we need to build from the mine to the finished product, directly talking to the cell maker, and the amount of qualification needed for all those supply chains. It's amazing. Like, it's 3 years each of us. So this is like, at some time it's a lot of work, but when you're halfway through it, you say, okay, if anybody else want to do it in North America, be my guest. Get in line. It's a very difficult entry point, and so that's something that was niche in the past that needs to become mass market, but by keeping everything very safe. So it will be a challenge to scale up and keeping the same momentum and bringing the market to scale without changing the safety pattern of all that. So that's an amazing opportunity we have in front of us, but a lot of work.
Alex or Brian, anything to add?
Well, I just kind of highlight something that Trent had said, which is even during the exploration or ultimately the mining, as you're producing these materials, it's not as simple as, oh, well, I have lithium or I have cobalt or I have nickel, or certainly in Arianne's case, we have phosphate. But just because you have that particular material, it doesn't mean that it's applicable for batteries. And each one of these materials, and I'm not particularly well versed in some of these other materials, but it's similar to phosphate. Not just any phosphate is going to work in batteries. Just because you find it and develop it and can produce it, it doesn't mean that it's there for batteries and it's going to work.
Right. Alex, anything to add?
I think everyone's made very relevant points in terms of this discussion topic. I think that I'll go back on the point about we've got to turn this into, from what I would call a niche market to a market that's a mass-produced market. And I think what we need is to not only leverage the expertise of people like this around the table, we've got to leverage the expertise of industry as well. And I think we have to bring big industry in because EVs and electric batteries, as we've all talked around the table, they're coming, they're big. We're transitioning. People's taste, they don't want to have the fossil fuel cars, they want to have electric vehicle cars, and we've got to be ready. And I think it's going to be a lot of investment as we start to move forward over the next few years. It has been, and it's going to continue to be a lot more.
Thank you, all you guys, for that discussion. Next sort of general topic here is sort of the security, right? Brian, maybe I'll start with you here, talking about the supply chain, the accessibility, the security of the supply chain. Anything you want to talk about sort of more broadly about where the materials come from currently that are going into batteries?
Sure. So again, I think unlike some of these other gentlemen, my comments are really focused in regards to the LFP battery, the lithium iron phosphate battery, which has really emerged today. It's over 30% of all batteries. Look, there's definitely, first and foremost, on the battery itself, the LFP. Today, over 90% of LFPs come from China. So even once you've processed all those materials and turned it into a battery, unfortunately, geopolitical events being, what they are, the West has really made a determination and looking to insource or see that these materials and the batteries themselves are made in a Western jurisdiction. But beyond that, of course, you need those materials to get to the battery. Now, in the case of phosphate, and it's something that I've talked about a long time, even phosphate as an agricultural commodity, most of the world's phosphate doesn't come from wonderful places in the world. I mean, by far the Middle East and North Africa is the biggest, but aside from that, you have China and you have Russia. So even if it's just to feed ourselves, North America, South America, Western Europe, significant parts of Asia are reliant on phosphate imports. Now you add in, the battery material, and not all phosphates work for batteries, as I had mentioned earlier, and you even have some challenges there. So, if ultimately the West is going to be, self-sufficient in batteries, it needs to source these materials. It needs to understand where these materials come from. I know that there are these challenges in other commodities, but again, in my world, phosphate, it's going to be particularly acute if you really want to stay in the West and North America.
Yeah. Sort of building off this, and Alex, when I was going through your presentation here the other day, and we were talking about the sort of the pricing environment for all of this, help people understand where pricing is at right now, the trends, maybe even where profitability needs to be for someone like yourself.
For sure. Well, a big thing, I'll go back to what Brian was saying. When you look at the lithium market, it's coming out of China. It's been driven by China. The refining happens in China. There were subsidies in China for electric vehicles up until the end of 22. That came off. There's been some softness this year. But as we start to get more production and more plants built in North America and start to create a supply chain in North America, I think you're going to see it tighten. I think one of the real challenges when you look at commodities, generally, you see a lot of commodities are driven from North American exchanges. Right now, it's China for lithium. So I think as we bring more supply on in North America, we're going to get a more active and deep market for the lithium market. And I think you'll see it tighten it up.
Yeah,
it's going to be critical. Just one point: the supply from North America, at least I look at it from the lithium perspective, is critical. We have to have it develop a market here in North America.
Yeah. Sort of building off both Alex and Brian's point there, Eric, obviously one component is where the mining takes place, right? The other is where the processing and as Alex just sort of mentioned, expand on what you see as the need to bring this processing here to North America.
Absolutely. Geology is the foundation. It's important to have great deposit like phosphate in Quebec. We have graphite. We have also some lithium. So it's great to have that, but even better, it's to have the infrastructure to transform efficiently these minerals into the battery material needed. And it's not that easy. In our case, it's a third on the mining of the cost, and it's 2/3 on the transformation. It requires, in a lot of cases, a lot of hydroelectricity that we have, luckily here. and it's kind of a heavy industry. We need chlorine in our case, so we need the proper infrastructure. You cannot do that in the middle of Africa sometimes, so it's important to have the geology, to have the transformation infrastructure, and then we have the customer right here now. So that's the three main components. It's ideal now to create a very resilient supply chain and be competitive with China, because at the end of the day, this is our main competition, is to duplicate something that exists in Asia, but do it competitively, but green. Doesn't make sense to not do it green, it won't work. And then do it long term and with the best ESG profile possible. So this is what we're achieving.
I want to come back to that point there you just made in just a moment, but maybe before, Trent, anything maybe to add on to this sort of need and capability to bring the production and the processing here to North America?
Yeah, we could probably have a whole panel on that. It's being facilitated certainly by the Inflation Reduction Act, which is attracting a lot of investment, particularly in the U.S., but I think we'll see that extend into Canada here very soon. And it's all about China, right? As Eric alluded to, I mean, the supply chain is concentrated there, and there's a geopolitical and economic concerns around trying to replicate what they've done years and years ago. So yeah, it starts with geology. The mineral processing can be replicated. That's time and money. Unfortunately, I think we'll all agree, we started at the very bottom of the supply chain, right? We started with auto plants and battery plants, and now we got to work our way up. And as you work your way up, the good news is, mining aside, all the intermediate chemical steps, the capital is not that intensive, but it does take a while to permit. And so we see a lot of Asian and Japanese expertise coming to Canada for PCAM and CAM and things like that. The refining piece where we sit, much like mining, people want that to be done by locals, right? There's a regime and a way of doing business and an expertise that Canadians and Americans possess. So look, it's time and money, but I think we've all underestimated, from a policy side at least, how long it's going to take to get those first couple of steps of the supply chain lined up. So there's a day of reckoning. There'll be a rush to invest and permit, but it's going to cause some strain on the supply chain.
Yeah. Coming back to something Eric just mentioned there, maybe Alex, and I'll start from you. From an environmental aspect, talk about what you see are some of the risks, some of the safeguards that are needing to be put into place in order to ensure that this is sort of meeting the standards that are set forth out there.
For sure. And I come at it from a bit different perspective than a lot of people in the mining industry. Historically, I've been in the oil and gas industry. And so where I see, I'll speak to lithium just because I don't have expertise in the other metals, but what I see as a real opportunity, especially looking at North America, I'm going to point to oil fields across North America. There is lithium in them. They are producing today. They're just not extracting today. And I think that where people are going to be surprised, just in general, not this panel, but in general, where people are going to be surprised is the speed that we can bring it to market. I'll give a really good example. You've got a producing oil field. It's permitted today. You have to put some surface equipment on, but you can process lithium. When I look to some of the big players in the oil industry, when I see the CEO of Chevron, as he did in Q2, come out and say, lithium is going to become a core part of their business, lithium extraction, I think that's material. When I see Exxon and all the things that they're doing is material. So when I look at it from an environmental perspective, there are huge issues. You've got environmental groups, permitting is going to be tough. I think what we need to do is go through the path of least resistance. Again, I'm speaking specifically to lithium because you can extract lithium from oil field brines. And so by going through the path of least resistance, you take away a lot of the environmental hurdles that would otherwise be there, creating a new mine or creating a new project.
All right. And I'll throw it out there. Any other comments from the other panelists here on this topic?
Look, I think that it's a very good point in the sense that the West really wants to become a little bit more self-sufficient and look to build up these battery industries. Yet in the West, in terms of environmental, etc., it is a big factor, and so the whole process is something that needs to be thought about, and finding the companies that are advanced. I mean, Eric, you talked about it. This takes a long time, and so there's going to be a lot of people looking to get into the industry and be able to provide the materials. And before you can even quantify the specifics of those materials and see if they meet spec sheets, I mean, ultimately, you're going to have to get your facility, your mine, what have you, permitted, and that is not an easy task in the West.
Yep. And maybe this is sort of a good opportunity to allow each of you to expand a little bit more on each of your individual programs. Maybe Brian, you can start here. Talk about where Arianne sits in sort of the supply chain and the opportunity for phosphate here.
Sure. So as I had said earlier, look, phosphate, even to a degree now, really isn't fully understood as a battery material. Everyone associates it with agriculture, and look, I get that. 85% of phosphate does wind up in fertilizer. But one of the things about phosphate is not all deposits are the same, and there are these rare deposits. They're igneous. It's what Arianne has, and allows you to make a very pure phosphate concentrate. And this is important because the material that goes into the battery is purified phosphoric acid. And depending on the nature of your phosphate, that will determine how much you can actually transform into purified phosphoric acid, and how much of the residue winds up being put into and needing to go into fertilizer because it just doesn't, make the cut. And so in the case of purified phosphoric acid, we're going to need a lot more, even to meet, moderate growth for the LFP. And how are we going to do that? Like, we need over 1 million tons more of purified phosphoric acid. And, with normal phosphate deposits, you will wind up making a lot of fertilizer in the process of making that purified phosphoric acid for the battery. And the guys who can do that today aren't going to do that because they make their money selling fertilizer. So in the case of Arianne, again, we're very fortunate. The nature of our phosphate deposit allows us to make mostly purified phosphoric acid, and we don't have any residual that then has to be turned into kind of those dry bulk fertilizers. So this is key. This is what we're focused on. We are looking at vertically integrating our projects. So, as Eric had touched on, Quebec definitely wants to be a big player in the battery ecosystem. So, our path forward is, in a way, we're a small company, but again, because of our deposit, we can fairly quickly ramp up and be the major player in purified phosphoric acid, which you need for the LFP. And really, that's because some of the other guys who could maybe ramp up quickly, like I say, they have incumbent markets, fertilizer markets that they don't want to hurt. So, it is a tall task, but that's ultimately our plan.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Eric, sort of same question to you. Talk about Nouveau Monde a little bit more broadly, Graphite maybe more broadly, and sort of your opportunity.
Great. So I'll keep Graphite easy, which is not easy to keep it easy. But so in North America, you refer to the battery storage capacity, but altogether with the EV, it's about 1.5 terawatt hour that is in construction, I think before 2030 or 2031. So it's a lot of graphite. It's 1.5 million ton of graphite anode needed to do that. It's way more than what we're planning to do now, 42,000 tons. So we need to go back to, okay, the specific customer, what do they want and how we can qualify one after the other with a lot of work for the product they want. So we've announced already Panasonic Energy. So the phase one that we've built, we've mined so far 40,000 tons of rock to produce about 2,000 tons of concentrate in the phase one. It's our business card. So now we're processing those 2,000 tons of concentrate into hundreds of tons of samples to demonstrate to those Panasonic and other customers we can produce at scale in modules that will be duplicated many times for processing. So phase one is like the first trail. You know, if you walk in the snow, you know, the first one is difficult, but then the second one after is easier to walk behind. So phase two, this is the project that will provide profitability. So this is the one where Panasonic wants the significant portion of it, more to come in the near future on other customer to complete the customer portfolio. So we have the Matawini mine, 100,000 tons of flake that will mostly be transformed in Bécancour and anode material. So in parallel, we're working on 500,000 tons per annum as a phase three, because it's clear with Panasonic and few other customers were sold out on the phase two. So we need to already start planning what will be behind in our trail when it's easier and take all market share as possible, because currently there's not much happening in graphite in North America because it's all in China, 100%. There's no major working in anode materials. So we need to become a little bit that major. And the cell maker, they need us to happen. Otherwise, it will all be China. And apparently, China is not invited to party in North America. So some of us need to step up while there is price challenge in China today, but we need to have faith that our customer in our negotiation are willing to pay premiums for North American product, premiums for logistics and inventory that will be easier for them. For carbon neutrality, we plan to produce a carbon neutral product thanks to all electric mining and other initiatives, and also tariffs and IRA and stuff like that, that the government is helping us a lot to demonstrate our customer that the cost of using a Chinese product in the future is very expensive and very risky. So they need an alternative, and this is what we're working every day at providing them at a very competitive cost, high ESG profile, right in their backyard.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Eric. Maybe we'll, Trent, turn it over to you. Talk a little bit about sort of it's really a multi-pronged strategy, right? To onshore sort of this whole entire EV supply chain. So talk about in a little more detail what it is you're doing there at Electra.
Yeah, on the refining piece, in particular, refining recycling, it's the processing expertise, right? We've got hydrometallurgical expertise within our four walls, Valley, Glencore, Sherritt. We've also got a permitted met site. It's got a replacement value today of some 200 million. So legacy plus what we put into it, another 60 to go to get it permitted, and that'll get us our cobalt refinery up and running. Now, our stakeholders are both government and industry. So Canada, U.S. government, and even the U.S. It's DOE, DOD, state. It's a multi-agency affair, if you will, and the collaboration has been fabulous. We're the $7,500 vehicle credit under the IRA is what's attracting the industry to be maybe even more engaged or trying to hurry their onshoring. And that's kind of where we come in. Nobody's doing what we're doing. Nobody's building a cobalt refinery to start. But yeah, to your point, Robert, it doesn't stop there. You want to co-locate all these cathode materials, so cobalt, nickel, manganese, and the recycling in one site so that your precursors have access to a site or at least a source of material to rationalize their supply chain. Once we're up and running on the cobalt side, 1.5 million vehicles, EBITDA margin projections are far in excess of our market cap for 1 year. So lots of value, but still a little bit of work to do.
Excellent. And maybe Alex, finally, talk about how you're sort of looking to create this value, right? Obviously for shareholders here by becoming North America's, really the first commercial producer of lithium hydroxide and lithium carbonates from oil field brine, right? Sort of this very unique approach.
Yeah, we're pretty excited. The technology that we developed, again, our team, we're from Calgary, Alberta. We focused on the oil and gas industry. We see a huge opportunity. We developed our technology to process lithium from low concentration brines. And, what does that mean? Well, the Permian Basin, which is the largest producer of gas and oil in North America right now, they're producing 18.5 million barrels of brine a day today. You could build a 300,000 ton per annum plant from that. It's low concentration lithium from brines, but it's there. And so we're excited that I think we need all parts of the market to come together. We're excited about this part. We really like the fact the infrastructure is in place, and we believe that will provide an opportunity to move a little bit further ahead faster. Permitting new mines, permitting is just such an issue. Environmental opposition you've got is such an issue. So if it's there and producing today, let's take advantage of it.
Got it. Now, we're sort of coming up at the end of the time here. As I think we all have said, we could probably go on for many hours here, but maybe some closing comments, Eric, maybe starting with you here.
I mean, it's the opportunity of our generation. It's very exciting for companies. I'm sure the four of us here don't need a justification to wake up in the morning. So stay sit, look at it, be investor, be part of it. That will be a fantastic ride long term. Yeah.
Excellent. Trent?
Yeah, I'll build on what Eric just said. I mean, it's as investors, markets are really, to say they're choppy would be a huge understatement. They're tough. And we're all seeing equity valuations drop across the board. And then the smaller end of the scale, you tend to get hit a little harder. So if you're looking for an opportunity, it's not a bad time to invest. You got to do your homework. A lot of companies with ideas, a lot of fancy, I call them PowerPoint companies. I think what you have here around the table are real companies with real assets. And there could be some good opportunities.
Excellent. Brian?
Yeah, so I guess I'd say that for maybe investors taking a look at Arianne, I've touched on it throughout. Kind of, I'd say that phosphate is the Rodney Dangerfield of commodities. It just doesn't get much respect. When I'm invited to panels like this, a lot of people at first say, "What's a phosphate company doing there with the cobalts and the nickels and the lithiums and the graphites and everything that maybe people understand as a battery material?" But at the end of the day, phosphate's very much a battery material because the phosphate and fertilizer market had been so bad for so long. There's very, very few phosphate companies out there that were able to advance their project. Now the LFP comes along, demand's really going to grow. We're fully permitted, shovel ready, can address this. And it was touched on, like the markets in general are weak, but I think one of the things that Arianne stands to benefit from is just a general re-rating as more and more people come to realize that phosphate isn't just for feeding people. It is a battery material, and maybe it deserves some of the multiples and valuations that some of these other material companies have.
Perfect. And thank you for that, Brian. And Alex, sort of closing comments here from your side?
When I look at groups like this around the panel today, there's a lot of work being done on the energy transition, and it's exciting to see. And there's a lot of areas to invest. It's coming to North America. We're committed, and it's really exciting to be part of it. And I think as we all evolve over the next couple of years, there's going to be a lot of value creation because, as Eric mentioned right from the beginning, you don't get this opportunity twice. I mean, we're going through the transition now, and there's going to be some losers, there's going to be winners, and it's exciting to see this much work being done on it.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate all the time that you guys have provided to us and to sort of the listeners here. I think hopefully what people will take away is sort of the multi aspects of what we're talking about. Battery isn't just one, right? You have phosphate here, we have graphite, we have lithium, we have cobalt, nickel. There's the processing side of it, the mining side of it. Pretty multifaceted, and obviously I think you've gotten some insights from each of the panelists here into what sort of is the various drivers and components of this market. I guess I'll close by saying if there's anyone out there that would like to get in touch with any of our panelists for sort of expanding on the discussions, I'd be happy to sort of coordinate, reach out to me. My email is Blum, BLUM @lythampartners.com. Again, I'll make any sort of connections that I can between everyone here. So again, Brian, Eric, Alex, Trent, thank you so much for your time today. Greatly appreciate it. We hope everyone enjoyed this panel and enjoys the conference here. So enjoy, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Robert.